Hello and welcome to the addendum video in Stitch With Me in 2026 online workshop for creating the fabric book. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I stitch the January and February prompt pages together to prepare them to be stitched into the book in the future. And I'm going to show you how I label my work. Now, some of you have posted in our Facebook group, and the link is in the description below, how you label your work. I think it's stunning. Some of you stitch the words. Some of you use rubber stamps. There's all different methods. I'm going to show you the method that I use and how I'm going to do it throughout this journal. Okay, so here I have my two pages, pages 1 and 2 from January and February, and here's the back. Now, I've pressed the sides of each so that I have a finished edge. They're not sewn down, they're just pressed together. And since they're pressed together without any adhesive, I have a little play with them. Now, this is the prototype book. I wanted to show you this again so that people could see how everything was completed and attached. You'll see the entirety of each page once it's pressed together. We're going to attach that to the spine. We're not attaching it to the spine today. We're just going to stitch the outer portion of the pages. So again, I take my pages 1 and 2, make sure they fit. I can alter them as well. And I decide the formation that I want them to be. So I can decide which way I want the spine to go. The spine is going to go on the left hand side. So I want to make sure that that's the formation that I want. I like the red in the back corner on the left hand side. I'll just play with the edges to get them the right shape that I want. Make sure it fits and then finagle them if they don't. You can pin this together or use clips. So this is going to be a starting process for combining the pages. Now I'm going to use pearl cotton thread in like this ecru color. You can use colors that match your design. You can use a neutral, you can use black, whatever you want. You can even use a sewing machine. I'm going to take my Frixion marker. Because it's an erasable marker, it's removed with an iron. And I just want to sketch where I want to put my marks. I'm not going to sew on the left-hand side of the page, and I'll leave like an inch or two, but I'm not going to sew the pages together. That's the area that I'm going to use to attach it to the spine. So I'll start my sewing by coming up in between pages, and then I'll sew around. I'm breaking one of my cardinal rules here and using a pin to hold it in place, and then some clips. This will help me keep it nice and neat. One of the reasons I like working with fabric is it's a soft medium and it's forgiving, so I can just refold the edges to make sure that they line up. It's not a perfect science. So I always double check and triple check that I have the correct side that I'm going to close. Can't tell you how nervous that makes me. Again, I'm going to keep the left hand side open and work on stitching on the side. Now I want to add a label. And instead of having the label stick out from my work or maybe go through my work, I'm just going to have it attached to the side of the page. I'm thinking of keeping it on the far side, but I might use it on the bottom or the top as well. I'll figure that out as I go through the months. Again, once I've double and triple checked, I can start sewing my pages together. Also, the beauty with sewing is, worst case, you can remove stitches if you make a mistake. But I'm trying to avoid that. So I'll use that marker as a guide, and just so that my stitches are somewhat straight, I'll start my sewing process, and I'm just going to use a running stitch. Because I'm going through so many layers of fabric, it's not a quick stitch, but I'm enjoying this part of the process. I actually really enjoy seeing my book come together. So I'm going to stitch around all the edges, the perimeter, but not the spine. I want to leave that open. So I've stitched around the perimeter, leaving that spine open on both the front and the back because I used the running stitch. And now the page is ready to be sandwiched in the book. I'm going to wait to do that, however, until I have more pages done. Right now I want to work on a label. I saw how some of you already labeled your work, and I think that's wonderful. In years past, I've labeled them with rubber stamps where I stamped onto fabric and stitched it on. Other people have stitched the words themselves, the text. I think that looks stunning. I'm going to do something different this year. I'm going to use a micron pen and a guide. So the first thing I needed to do was choose the fabric that I wanted the background for the labels. So I have some muslin fabric here. I love the neutralness of it. And on the back, I put some interfacing just to give it a little more body. Now I cut the fabric into 2-inch strips. They're about 12 inches long, and I think these 2-inch strips will last me for the entirety of the book. If not, I can always make more. Now I'm going to create something like bias tape here. So I'm going to fold each strip in half lengthwise. So now it's about 1 inch in length on each side. And I'm just pressing it to the center. And now I'm going to open it up and repress it so that the edges meet in the center. This way there's no rough edges showing. Everything's nicely and neatly tucked. I'll press this until it's nice and neat. And then I have one more step to do to complete this, and that is to fold it on itself and press that once again. This way all the edges are tucked and it's a nice long strip. I think it looks great. It's very sharp and neat. I'm going to use clips to hold its shape while I'm not using it to sew with, and then I have my label tape ready to go. So now I have my pages that are sewn together, I have my label tape, homemade here, and now I can decide where I want to put it on my page. Here's the edge that I originally thought. I can always put it up or down. Yeah, I think I'm going to use the edge. And because I want to label it, I'm going to label it with both the straight stitch from prompt 1 in January and the stem stitch from February. I'm going to take my micron pen, and that's where I'm going to write onto that label. Now, Dritz, the sewing company, makes these little guides. They're not necessary. I have a link for them below. I'm not affiliated with the program at all, but I did like how they fit into this label and how they create uniform text for my label. I can decide if I want to fold the labels so there's no raw edge showing, or maybe I'll cut them, or maybe cut them with pinking shears. So I'll take a moment to make these labels. Each letter is written by hand, and it goes along pretty quickly. So there I have the finished label with one side labeled straight stitch. So now I just have to cut it to size, trim it accordingly, and then write on the other side. So I really like using this guide. It just makes it quick. Now I have to decide exactly where I want to put my label. Make sure that it's the appropriate label for each page. So straight stitch goes on the first prompt, and then just decide exactly where I want it on both sides of the page. Do I want it higher, lower? Just come to a happy medium. That looks pretty good. So what I want to do now is clip it in place so that it doesn't move, tuck any loose ends or refold any fabric pieces, and then I can start stitching. I want to make sure that when I make my stitch, I go through the center of the layers. In this case, just underneath the label will work. And then I'll just do a straight stitch to hold it in place and stitch around the bottom of the label parallel to the edge. So this is how the page looks all labeled. I really like it. It stands out, but it kind of works with the page as well. I liked adding that little heart when I wrote stem stitch. I think it kind of pulled everything together. I may even color in that heart. I'm not really sure yet, but I do like that label. It's anchored on quite securely, and that micron pen works beautifully. So that's how I create the pages, by sewing them together and add the label. I'll do this with all 6 pages. Later in the year, I'll show you how I start sewing the pages to the spine, how I attach them, but I'll wait for later in the year to do that. I'd like to have a few pages done before I start that process. So that's how I combine pages and create my label for Stitch With Me in 2026. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. And thanks for joining me today.